Welcome to another episode of Balkan Show.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. We
Welcome,
couldn't
everyone. Yeah.
start the show.
Yeah, we froze it at the
Yeah.
first second. On this episode, as you can read on the explanation of this episode, we're having a old guest, but with a new topic, but at least in the same direction, because we know how popular he is and how he really knowledgeable is about this thing about politics in Turkey. His name is İlkan Dalkuç. Did I pronounce good? I didn't
Yep.
mention S or something. So okay. The ending can mean S in Turkish for audience that doesn't know. So I pronounce it Dalkuç. He's originally from Izmir. He finished different schools in his lifetime in the field of economics and mechanical engineering and so on. But he's most famous for his current work at Daktilo 1984. That's like a free speech platform, like a media platform, like has podcasts, news, then other formats that they publish the news, and they're mostly affiliated with free speech and liberalism. So they tend to talk about neutral aspects of politics in Turkey in Turkish. That's his main work and he's most famous for, and he's really knowledgeable in this area, and that's why we have him today on it. Am I right?
Yeah. And today in this episode, we talked about our previous election in Turkey, the general elections. What was the expectations and the outcomes, and how was this last 10 months after the general election until this year's local election, and the outcomes of this local election in Turkey. We did go with the details a little bit. What was the changes? What was the losers? Who was the losers? Who was the winners? And yeah, it will be a deep episode with a lot of knowledge, a lot of things that you can sell to your friends in a
small talk,
in coffee talks, small talks.
Yeah.
Did you know that it's happening in Turkey? Yeah, you can use this information.
And some also some funny side notes from Turkish politics. Yeah, so stay tuned, enjoy. Lovely Balkan ladies and gentlemen, and people supporting Balkans in all every forms. So lay back, sit down, try whatever you do. Just be safe and enjoy, and support us in any way possible.
Let's go with the episode.
Let's run it. Let's go. Hello, lovely guests, and we are back with our new old guest. Most of you are familiar with Ilkan. He was before on our first season. Welcome, Ilkan, to our Balkan Show. Yeah, welcome back. We are pleased to have you back with us.
Me too.
Can you tell for our audience where are you right now?
I am living in Izmir now. I am with you from Izmir. I am from Daktilo 1984, and I do this kind of work actually about Turkish politics in Turkish, of course. Sometimes in English. I sometimes join this kind of broadcast also in English in Poland. One time in United Arab Emirates. One time in Saudi Arabia. This kind of things also happen, but mainly I am a small time public pundit in Turkish politics.
For now, you never know. Nevertheless, as you said yourself, you have lots of things to share, not only in Turkey, but outside. That's why we're here today to share with our Balkan audience and people that like Balkans in general. Our main focus today is to talk about the politics in Turkey, but not especially the boring part, but actually the impact that it has in daily lives. On it, if I'm correct, there were two major elections last year, one and today this year. The last year was presidential election. Big change. We talked about it in our last episode when you were here, but just briefly, can you explain the situation before those elections? What were the expectations and what were the outcome or disappointment in the end, so to say?
Yeah. If our viewers find time or make their time to watch our previous episode, they will find that my predictions were completely wrong, and
All of
and
ours.
also yeah, and also the opinion polls are basically wrong, and President Erdogan did won the last election, and he got he won the election in the second round with the 52% vote. And with a 2% margin, he got the majority votes, and he got the election. There were a possibility of a change actually, and people were disappointed because of that. There were opinion polls which are in favor of the opposition, but also there were some opinion polls that were in favor of the government of the Erdogan. Also, I can also I should mention that. And other than that, there are upheavals. There were upheavals in the opposition, and the opposition was basically in was a great disarray, and opposition was coming to the pieces, and opposition was in a very bad place before the local election, and there are some inner party politics struggles in the major opposition parties, mainly CHP, the major opposition party, and other than that, the E party, the next biggest opposition party, E party, is also suffering a lot of changes and a lot of upheavals. And with this kind of an general view, is with this kind of an habitat, we came to the local elections, and we were not actually hopeful about it in general in Turkey.
Oh,
People were generally
There was no
were not very optimistic.
excitement.
People were generally pessimistic about the elections. I can easily say that. And other than that, people were not believing in opinion polls. There were some opinion polls which were saying that opposition may be hopeful, can be hopeful about the upcoming election, but people were not caring about these opinion polls after the last loss against Erdogan. People were unhopeful. People are not attending politics. People are not talking about politics. As I said before, I am making an weekly show about Turkish politics in Turkish in Daktilo 1984, and I can easily say that our viewing numbers were rapidly decline after the election. People are not viewing us. The public interest about politics mainly decline after the last election. We are in general we are in favor of opposition. So our viewers are not caring about politics after the last victory of the Erdogan. So people were not caring about the elections. People were not caring as much as in the last election that Erdogan won. So we came to the local election in this kind of an environment, in this kind of an atmosphere. I can easily say that.
Okay. So basically, first time you were wrong, and at the end it became really sad outcome. Second time you were again wrong, but it was the opposite. It was a good outcome.
Actually, I had some connections about the people who are making the opinion polls, so I have a deeper knowledge about the opinion polls, and I know some of the biggest surprises before the election. I can predict that, but I don't have the audacity to to tell to declare that CHP will win in Adıyaman, for example. CHP will win in Kütahya, in Afyon. I don't have the courage. I was not bold enough to openly say that those things, because I see the numbers, the results. To be sincere, I do believe that. I did believe that numbers, but I don't have the courage to openly declare any of that. And also, in general, the opposition's approach to those issues were changed. Opposition wants to de-escalate the situation to get the election. De-escalate. I mean, when you escalate the situation, you also make Erdogan supporters Also,
Provoked. You
yeah,
provoked them.
you also
Uh-huh.
provoke them. So opposition wants to de-escalate the situation, and I did stay within the flow of the general opposition.
But here I want to ask about the polls, like for the previous elections. I remember the most of the time the medium or the average of the polls from the companies are mostly correct. But for the previous election, it was like almost all companies, all polls were wrong. What was the reason for that?
One of them is a very certain one. We have in Turkey we have 1 million extra voters who are living in abroad. You cannot predict about their votes. You can just add some sort of a rough number, like you just add 1 million to Erdogan, basically, because as you all know that in Germany the main Turkish voters in abroad are living in Germany, and they are actually supporting Erdogan. Other than that, the participation is the main issue in this election, and participation of the election is the key factor about the opinion polls, because the participation of the people, voters, change the scene, change the general scene of the election, because the voter base, you wanna judge, you wanna predict about, for example, 40 million voters. You wanna and you predict them through like 2,000 people. Okay, you can do that, but when the 40 million become 50 million, your prediction is useless. And the main reason is we have like 87% participation. 87% participation in the presidential election made Erdogan victorious, actually. If the participation rate lower than 85%, I guess it would be a victory for the opinion polls. But when it raises above the 85% participation rate, Erdogan get the winning majority, and Erdogan get the edge because of this rising participation rate. Because we all know that we have a bad economy, we are suffering in economic matters. That's a fact. People are not happy with the government. Okay, but also people are not satisfied about the opposition. People are not really believe that opposition has the capacity to rule to Turkey, and there are some racial and religious issues behind that. There are some racial and religious issues behind that. As we all know that the Turkish politics are basically polarized. And this polarization issue worked very well in the last presidential election. As a result of that, the participation rate gets very high. This kind of polarization did not really work that well in the local elections, because it's a local matter, actually. Actually, we see that the participation rate, even if it is generally higher than the European countries, like 78% participation rate we had in the local elections. It is actually higher than most of the European countries, but also it is a lower number for Turkey. I mean, it is nearly a 10% lower number for Turkey. And these 8%, the participation rate gets 8% lower. This 8% decrease of participation made Erdogan voters out of the ballots, so that we see this kind of surprise results. I mean, the results are overwhelming, actually. I mean, the map of Turkey's election is overwhelming. First time in his history, Erdogan gets the second place. I mean, Erdogan is not the winner. Erdogan's party, AKP, is the second party in Turkey now. I mean, it's very surprising, because, as we all know, that Erdogan is ruling as a single party in Turkey, and also Erdogan's party, AKP, is actually a dominant party. I mean, Erdogan's party is enjoying a continuous 22 years of government. I mean, that's hilarious. That's fantastic. I mean, that is the level of, for example, Mexican or Japanese politics level.
Mm,
Like Liberal Democrat Party in Mexico, in Japan, or which party was it? It was in Congress, institutional something party in Mexico.
okay,
It was
interesting.
as far as I remember, and also the Congress Party in India, or maybe
True.
an African national. I mean, the Mandela's Party in South Africa.
Yeah.
This kind of dominance that Erdogan enjoyed. I mean, for example, Erdogan's party was first in the in all the former elections. I mean, he had. I mean, its part AKP did not actually get a real rival, because when Erdogan's party AKP is getting like 45%, 50% votes of the votes, the second party is not getting like 40% of the votes. I mean, Erdogan's party is enjoying 45%. For example, second party CHP is getting like 25%, 22%. I mean, nearly half of the votes. I mean, that is a
Yeah.
huge margin between them.
Yeah.
There were not even a close race between two parties, CHP and AKP.
Mhm.
But we don't have anything like that before. We don't have anything like a close competition between two parties. But now Erdogan's party AKP is second, in the second place.
Mhm.
That is totally a new thing for Turkey. That's totally a new area. We are talking about a different political environment now. I mean, we are talking about a different political environment now. In Turkey, I cannot really say that one party is dominating Turkish political arena. In the last
Mhm.
20 years, I can say that one party was dominate the Turkish political arena. But now,
Mhm.
it is not. Turkish political arena, we are now having a lot of unknowns. We are having a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what will happen next. I mean, there can be more more diverse or different alliances appear. I don't know that. I don't know that now, because as I said before, we are having a lot of. We are in the wilderness now. Actually, we are in the wilderness. I don't know that. I don't know what will come after that. Actually,
Unexplored area. So like,
yeah.
Mhm.
I would like to come back on this thing when you said about the polls, about the number of people going to elections. I also ask on it, when I compare to most of Europe, it's really high numbers of people going to the polls. Is it obligatory by law, or just it's a part of the culture to go out and vote?
I mean, it was obligatory in the early 80s. It was
Uh-huh.
obligatory. I mean, because the government, the coup, there were a coup in Turkey in 1980s, and the coup leaders were afraid that people would protest against them by not participating. So they want to they want to erase that kind of impossibility. That they maintain this kind of an city law about voting. But now it's not the case. Yeah, I mean, if I don't vote, no one cares in Turkey now. It's actually no one cares. It's not an obligation. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there is some silly thing that is writing in some sort of a law book in some place, but no one cares about it. It's not the case. It's not the case.
Yeah. But nevertheless, above 80%, it's a huge, huge number. I mean, I can say in the Balkans and ex-Yugoslavia, for Serbia, for sure, like having tops was like 60% or something. But those are not the real numbers, because the lists are not updated. So lots of dead people are not around, and they vote for them. So realistically speaking, who knows how many people vote in the end? It's not popular, it's not obligatory by law. And interesting here, I can draw a parallel with not only for Serbia, but also for Bosnia, Croatia, and other countries. The more voters you get, the party in the power will lose, because most of them are like clearly populistic. Erdogan more or less is the same, but at least has some level of ideology. ours also have some level of ideology, but in a sense they are for Russia, for Serbia, and then they're for Europe next day. So they have the fixed number of voters, and that's it. No more, no less. So the more voters you get on top of this number, you win. But their idea is to get the less as possible. In Turkey, is the opposite. The more voters you get, the more option is for Erdogan to win.
I mean, there is a minor parallel between your version and our version, because I can say that in general, the Kurdish minority tends to absent from voting. I mean, Kurdish, the ratios of participation is generally lower in the Kurdish areas of Turkey. I can say that there were a 10% gap between the participation rates. For example, the western side and eastern side of Turkey. The participation rate is nearly 65%, 70% in the eastern Kurdish areas, and 85% in the western areas in Turkey in general. I can say that there is a 10% gap between that. If the opposition, because as we all know that the Kurdish areas, the officials that people were elected actually generally prosecuted. So that the Kurdish voters' tendency to vote is declining, because they think that their votes did not count. And as a result of that, their participation rates getting lower and lower. And this would be an issue about Turkish democracy in the upcoming years. I can easily say that, because there is an issue about the Kurdish mayors in the southeastern part of Turkey, which is about their persecution, and they can be withheld from their seats. That is an issue, and if that is happen again, that was happened before, and if that is happen again in this term, I can easily predict that in the upcoming next election, for example, in the 2029 election, maybe five years from now, we will see an even more less participation in the Kurdish areas. I'm afraid we may see these kind of results in Turkey. It is an issue. I mean, in general, in democracies, minorities have tendency to vote less. For example, blacks vote less in United States, Muslims vote less in India, Kurds vote less in Turkey. I mean, because they don't actually benefit from the system, so that they actually get out of the system. They don't care about the system.
True. And on top of that, knowing the bad romance so to speak, between Erdogan and Kurds, it's obvious that Erdogan wants them to vote less and less, and removes mayors and makes this environment that's hospitable to them. So the less Kurdish votes, the more chance for him to win, basically. So yeah, understandable.
From the opposition
and the
side,
opposition is not actually a real opposition. Did not actually offers them a real solution or real change. That we have our opposition, but opposition is not really friendly to the Kurds. I mean, opposition is more sympathetic to the Kurds. I can say that, but the level of this sympathy is limited. I can also really add that. There is a sympathy to Kurds. There are some alliances between the Kurds and the Turkish opposition in some places of this election. For example, in Istanbul, in Mersin, I can see some sort of an collaborations between the Kurds and the Turkish opposition, CHP. But this alliance is limited. I can easily say this alliance is limited, and if this alliance gets more attention, it may also affect the popularity of the CHP, because a reasonable number of the voters of the opposition is also very nationalistic.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I also had in mind. If you tend to be more friendly to the Kurds, you win the Kurds, but then you lose some of your voters. So it's like a balance. You need to know to calculate how much you can support them and not jeopardize your voting base. It's understandable. Yeah.
And from the opposition side, I want to ask about from the previous election, previous disappointment from the opposition to this local elections. How did the opposition prevent or gain more supporters after that election? Like, what was their strategy? What was the reason? At least they kept their votes.
Okay. First and foremost, common people suffer more. I should add, because in economic wise, Mehmet Şimşek is appointed to the economic as an economic chair to Turkish government. After the Mehmet Şimşek's appointment, the economical precautions made our life more difficult in Turkey. People suffered more heavily. People suffered more directly in Turkey. I can say that this really affects every voter, because a lot of Erdogan's voters were hoping that Erdogan's government suffered from outside attacks. Actually, if Erdogan gets the election, these attacks will end, and economy will. They believe that economy will flourish, but the things get on the contrary. Erdogan's Erdogan actually postponed the effects of the economic crisis after the election, and people suffer more after the election. And other than that, I must add, CHP, the main opposition party, CHP, had some inner party political struggle, and this struggle, after that struggle, they went to Congress, and they changed their leaders. The leader that lost to the Erdogan, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, sacked from his office. Özgür Özel is come out as a new leader to CHP. He is slightly younger than Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. He is actually nearly 15 or 16 years younger than Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. Nearly, he's a more younger. No, he's nearly 25 years younger than Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. Sorry, he's totally very young. Than Kılıçdaroğlu is older than, very much older than him. And the mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu, was a leading figure in this change. And the CHP Congress is actually affected our society, because in general, opposition voters are not very enthusiastic about this situation, but they see that the leader that lost is changed. I mean, somehow votes count. I mean, that is an issue. As people see that one people who did not succeed is getting out, and this is a real issue. I mean, one people who is responsible, some suffer from his responsibilities, and that shows something that work. That shows something that is working. I mean, CHP
It
is
was
somehow working.
unusual for Turkish politics
Yeah.
for.
Take responsibility.
I mean,
Well, he didn't take very responsibility. He was just kicked
uh,
out.
but Özgür Özel is getting support from Ekrem İmamoğlu, the mayor of Istanbul. They two of them collaborate, and the power of Ekrem İmamoğlu's financial and political support is actually helped Özgür Özel to get the delegates of CHP, which are people generally believe that firmly connected to Kılıçdaroğlu, actually voted for Özgür Özel, who made this change possible. And after that change, CHP sees this local election professionally. CHP's view about this local election is not very emotional. I can easily say that. Even without the alliances between İYİ Party or Kurds or nationalists, CHP is looking for support from all the opposition bases, and CHP was successful about it, because people are in Turkey knows the politics even better than us. I mean, they know about. They have a sense of. They have a sense. They have a intuition about elections. They know that who can win, and people are generally vote to the candidate who has the capacity to win the election. and people from Izmir, for example, people of Istanbul, for example, who voters who are leaning to opposition. But for example, a guy is leaning to Kurds, DEM party. He knows that uh, in any case, in any scenario, he knows that Kurds could not win any election in Istanbul. So that he votes or she votes the possible winning candidate, Ekrem İmamoğlu, against AKP. And likewise, for example, a secularist nationalist voter in Istanbul also knows that his candidate or her candidate has no capacity to win any election in Istanbul in his lifetime. That is not a possibility. In Istanbul, there are two possibilities: AKP or CHP. In Ankara, there are two possibilities. There were just two possibilities: CHP or AKP. Likewise, in Adana, in Iskenderun, in Hatay, in Mersin, in Antalya, in Muğla, in most of the Turkey. So CHP is generally enjoy discomfort. Even there is not an alliance between any parties in the opposition. CHP knows that it can form an alliance, not the parties, but the voters of the oppositions. So that there is an alliance is established. There was an alliance established between the voters of the opposition. Even if they are other sides of the political spectrum, they vote accordingly to against Erdogan. Accordingly against Erdogan, they did vote against Erdogan. So people's ability to understand, to comprehend, and to solve political situation in Turkey is much more sufficient and much more effective than the Turkish political parties. I can easily say that. People
That's good.
actually, the common people find a solution to their problem.
That's good.
Previous elections, there was no alliance in this election between the opposition parties, and they all put their own candidates. And even though they did like propaganda against the opposition and the Erdogan's party.
I mean, on it, I have a friend who is working for opinion polls company and made an telephone interview with a voter. And this voter is from Yozgat. He is from, and people asked this guy, who did you vote in the last election? He voted E Party in Yozgat in the last presidential election. He voted Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu and E Party. Who did you vote in the next? Who did you vote in the local election? People also ask to him. In the local election, our guy in Yozgat voted for Yeniden Refah, radical Islamist party, who has a capacity to win against Erdogan. I mean, he is working against Erdogan in every level.
They won.
And also people ask him, who will you vote in the upcoming elections? And he said, I will vote for CHP. I mean, this guy is vote for E Party, Yeniden Refah, and vote for CHP, and living in Yozgat, in the middle of Turkey. I mean, there is something. I mean, this guy knows politics better than all of us.
Yeah, but as you said, they're voting for winners. He's voting against Erdogan, so his ideology is anti-Erdogan. So he's voting for three different parties, which ideologically can be so much different from each other. But
Totally correct.
Interesting. Yeah, he's voting for the winning horse. That's basically this.
It's also almost the case for me. I voted for liberals. In my life, I voted for liberals. I voted for the Kemalists. I voted for Kurds. I voted for nationalists, according to the needs of the opposition.
Yeah, it's practical.
Means justify the ends. Ends justify the means.
Correct.
I don't know.
I had the same idea. Yeah, exactly.
But
for our audience,
I should add something like that, because people vote. People may easily vote this way because CHP voters also in the last 15 years voted for a lot of different parties and candidates who are not really their candidates or their parties. For example, we know that CHP voters vote for nationalistic MHP to get out of the 10% limit, for example. We know that CHP voters did vote for Kurds to get them in the parliament. CHP voters did vote for Ekmelet İhsanoğlu, who is a nationalistic Islamist guy, nominated to get ahead of Erdogan. CHP voters did not actually like him, but they did vote for him. So we all know that CHP voters did their job actually.
Yeah, it's always good to have a multi-party system, not just two parties competing with each other, AKP and CHP. Yeah, it also has downsides. Then the AKP can do the like Romans divide and conquer easily, but the other side you have plurality of opinions. It's also you divert people having dictatorships and one-party system eventually. Yeah, I have one very specific question for our audience outside Turkey to understand the importance of winning the local elections. Like, how much power do the local municipalities in those big cities have? Because I can give example in the Balkans, I can say in every country in the Balkans, so from Greece to Romania, from Bulgaria to Slovenia, when the party rules the capital, most likely it rules the country because it's so centralized. How is it in Turkey?
I mean, we also suffer or enjoy some similar system, but Turkey is first and foremost bigger than the most of the Balkan countries.
All
So
combined, it's bigger.
Yeah. And
in terms of population. Yeah.
To run a political party and to make politics is costly, and you need to reach some sort of a financial resources. And this is a real issue in Turkey because to collect and to divert resources from, for example, businesses to politics is very risky in Turkey, because you all know that Erdogan's wrath, you may suffer from Erdogan's wrath. I mean, that is an issue.
Get blacklisted.
So that,
yeah.
you can easily blacklist. So that to hold on some sort of power in local administrations made you a space to create some sort of a bubble for you to breathe. Actually, the local mayors have some sort of an financial power to maintain, for example, opposition media. For example, opposition parties is actually enjoying this kind of a comfort. For example, they can use local facilities to political activities. They can use local resources for their political activities. They can enjoy some sort of an comfort from this kind of local power, because we all know that in Erdogan's reign, every institution in Turkey really suffered. I mean, every institution in Turkey lost their former power and former
discipline,
former autonomy. I can easily say. For example, our media were more autonomous. Our universities, our academy is more autonomous. Our intellectuals were more autonomous than the political power.
Influence.
Yeah. But now, after the continuous reign of Erdogan, which is lasts more than 22 years, it is very difficult to be outside of his influence. So that you wanna rely on some sort of a political power to be against Erdogan, and that is a silly situation, and that's a thing for our opposition to discuss. Actually, it's not a nice situation, because people may, in the ideal sense, people may be outside of Erdogan's influence, but also outside of opposition's influence. It is the ideal place, but it is a very hard place to be in, to stand alone, actually. That is a real issue in Turkey, and we will discuss it maybe after the Erdogan's term in Turkey, because Erdogan really diminished the autonomy and diminished the integrity of our of our institutions, our media, our academy, our intellectuals. I mean, in the 1990s, for example, when 5 leading intellectuals of Turkey say something, it weighs something. It had a meaning. It had a value of it. People care. I mean, for example, Orhan Pamuk has a Nobel Prize. Okay, we all know.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
Orhan Pamuk did say something, people did listen. He is important. He got the Nobel. I mean, he is an important intellectual. If, for example, Sezen Aksu, our leading singer, if she did say something, people did listen. But now, nobody cares about anything. Because if you don't have any power, any political power, you have no point. You have no right to say anything. Or even if you say something, it doesn't mean anything. Because, I mean, that's not the issue of having liberty to say something or not. It has no effect. I mean, if you have liberty or not, it is not an issue. Because it's not the issue. In Turkey now, for example, our universities were not actually stellar organizations. They have their faults. They are actually stinks. They did stink, but they have some say. They have some say. We know that they are not the ideal universities. They did suffer a lot of things from a lot of things from a lot of subjects. They are not pro freedom. They did not they didn't excellent in academic issues. Okay, they are not the leading universities of the world. Okay, but they have their say. Now they don't have anything to say. No one cares. No one cares. For example, we all something is it is same about the media. We did know that our media stinks. we know that they are the most corrupt guys. Okay, they have a say. They have a say. Now we all know that they are just how did you say it? Erdogan's lips leaders. Erdogan's mouthpiece. Erdogan's mouthpiece. Or opposition's mouthpieces. I mean, I have no regard for the media. I know that these guys are pro Erdogan, these guys are against Erdogan, and then that's the issue. Okay, we all know that. And actually, I don't care about it. Actually, I want to be some sort of an original guy. Okay, but no one cares about our broadcast. Some sort of, for example, 5 or 10,000 people even watch or not. So.
Talking about from one side, you're from the other side. You cannot be in the middle, or you cannot have your own ideas or
it
your
is
own.
not the issue of being in the middle. You can be, for example, far outside. I am not in the middle. I can easily say that I am not in the middle. I am not. I don't claim that I am unbiased, but I know that there is a league of opposition mouthpieces. They are just mouthpieces. You all know that, and I don't actually value them much.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Even if you say something which is true, which is realistic, if that correlates with something that either opposition said or either the government media said, automatically you're part of them. So no matter if you're not aligning with them, you just said what realistically happened, and they had this news broadcasting saying this thing, automatically put you there. No, I'm just being realistic, and it's really hard to convince people that you're not following this pattern. You're just being neutral.
So in this environment, in this habitat, opposition must have some local power. Because the local governments, they are not government, but the mayors, the municipalities, their capacity to spend money is more relaxed than the main government, because there are more strict rules in the main government, and the mayors can easily spend not high amounts of money, but they can spend more easily, more relaxed.
Yeah.
Not only that, but you can give to the people showcase what your party can do on the government level based on what you do on local levels. Yeah,
that's another issue. You can give some serious examples about your style of governing, and also you become more normal. More normal. You are
Mhm.
you become
Acceptable.
acceptable. Yes. You become more acceptable. You become more normal. You become more familiar. You are not
Mm.
an outside. You become not you become not an outsider. You you are
Less abstract. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Less abstract. Also, you become. I like this word. You become more presidential, for example, in United States terms. You
Mhm.
acting like a president. I mean, yeah, you become
Yeah.
like the cars, like people like that. It's not very sweet, but people like that.
Yeah,
Having in
because
mind how, yeah, Marat.
yeah, go.
And having in mind how many people live in Istanbul, Ankara, and Izmir all together, then you have like a real representative of
I
how
mean, I
the
can
country can
easily
be
say
run.
that our opposition has the capacity to touch most of the people in Turkey.
Mm.
They made some calculations. I mean, nearly 60 or 50% of the Turkish population is living under the opposition's local governments, local mayors or
Mhm.
municipalities.
That's
Other
good.
than that, when you let aside villages, in general, you just see some sort of an opposition administration in nearly every city of Turkey. Even if opposition did not win the win the city, opposition
Mm.
is get some administration from the towns. For example, in Konya, there are 5 towns that CHP win. For example, in Maraş, which is a very conservative country in Turkey, there are nearly six towns that get by that CHP won in the last election. I mean, that is some sort of a very outstanding surprise for CHP. And
Mhm.
other than that, the cost of the Black Sea region, I can easily add. Even if
Mhm.
CHP did not win every city of the Black Sea region, CHP won some sort of an important towns in every city in
Mhm.
the Black Sea region.
For center towns.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Since now the opposition have some opportunities to prove itself in the rural areas instead of like Izmir, Istanbul, Ankara was already under the rule of opposition, but now they have this rural areas in Aegean side, in east, in Black Sea region, or in the inner side of the Anatolia. What are the challenges now for the opposition after like we suffered from earthquake, the inflation, the refugees, and also Erdogan, of course, will do something to change this picture back to his favor. He
Mhm.
will probably try to intervene in some political stuff in opposition party. What are the challenges for the opposition now?
First and foremost, we did talk about the economical issue in Turkey. We all know
Mm-hmm.
that the municipalities, the local mayors would also suffer from these issues. We all know that there are certain uh, amounts of debts of these local municipalities. We all know that these local institutions' capacity to spend money is actually very decreased, and Erdogan is for certain will try to limit the power to spend. Erdogan will certainly limit the power of these local municipalities to spend in the last upcoming
Mm-hmm.
in the upcoming years, because as we mentioned before, Mehmet Şimşek's economic policies is on the rise again, so that
Yeah.
he is performing some sort of an economical cut down from all the spendings of the government. So the local municipalities will suffer most. I can easily say that. Other than that, there are some there will be some issues about, for example, bribing There will be some issues about local corruption, and I'm pretty sure that our opposition will also suffer from these kind of accusations. And I am not really fully behind them. I don't really trust them fully. I know that they can manage better than Erdogan or AKP, but I know that I know that
The
they are
corruption is always
ethically.
always there.
Yeah. And we will see this kind of issues. And other than that, there is an issue about younger voters. We all know that the younger voters have a tendency to vote opposition, but the younger male voters are more fragile and volatile. The younger male voters are getting more angrier, and their anger and their volatility can be easily manipulated against opposition. They can be more nationalistic, or they can be more. They can be a more. They can become easily against. They can become easily against opposition also. They can. They are judging
They're not
opposition.
really in favor of liberalism or
Yeah, in favor of liberalism, or younger male voters may easily become leading figures against opposition. That's a real issue because they suffer the economic backlash more than their fathers or their elders.
Yeah, it's a big issue. I would also like to ask about the opportunities, about the future step. But as you said, we are right now riding on an uncharted place. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Let's stay optimistic. But last time when you were optimistic, it didn't turn out good. So just be neutral. Just don't say anything. Let's hope for the best. I just would like to wrap up with one trivia, so to say, and interesting for the Balkan people. We all know that Balkan people have different opinion about Turkey depending on the religion. More or less, Muslims in the Balkans tend to be pro-Erdogan. Majority of them, younger ones depending here and there, but pro-Erdogan. But still, there are lots of Balkan people living in Turkey with their roots, keeping them in touch with their motherland and so on. And there was a weird moment on this last election that it got viral. Actually, it happened before, but people didn't know this, about some area in Istanbul where they were playing Bosnian, Serbian songs and playing around and celebrating the win opposition. Can you tell us a little bit about this phenomenon?
Yeah. That's really funny because that neighborhood is very famous in Turkey because we know that our national teams of volleyball and basketball is basically consists of people from that neighborhood.
Yeah, from the Balkans, because they're the tallest ones. Yeah.
Yeah, nearly half of our national basketball teams come from that neighborhood. Nearly
Not surprised.
75% of our female volleyball team also comes from that neighborhood. I can easily say
From
this.
whole Turkey, it's really exceptional neighborhood. What's the name of the neighborhood of Istanbul? This area. Okay.
Yeah. And Yıldırım Mahallesi, Yıldırım District, Gazi Osman Paşa. I mean, those guys, which were basically from Bosnia, they had a tendency to vote pro Erdogan, but they have a capacity to vote for opposition also. They did vote for Erdogan, but they are not fanatical about it. They were not fanatical about it. They are just in the middle, actually. The Balkan migrants in Istanbul actually are in the middle, but they did flip for a opposition, and they did flip they did flip the tide in Istanbul. They made I can easily say. I mean, they are a sign of they were a sign of opposition. I can easily say that because their neighborhood is generally pro Erdogan, but that neighborhood is turning now. That neighborhood is changing now, and they also change for opposition. For example, I'm living in Izmir. In Izmir, the percentage of Balkan people is basically higher than Istanbul. And Izmir, they did generally vote for Erdogan. Pardon, vote for opposition. But in Istanbul or in Bursa, they generally vote for Erdogan also. I mean, they are not. They
Homogeneous. They are separate. Separate.
yeah. But for example, in Turkey, we have Romani people, gypsies.
Yeah.
They did actually vote for Erdogan. They like to drink, they like to dance, but they did vote for Erdogan. I think they are very fantastic people. That's a very hard topic.
Their lifestyle is completely opposite of Erdogan's promotions, and still they vote. Yeah.
In Izmir, we have Tenekeli Mahalle, which is their place, and they did they strongly vote for Erdogan. In Izmir, I can easily say that their neighborhood is the most pro-Erdogan neighborhood in Izmir. I can easily say that.
Oh.
Yeah. Gypsy Romani people, they did actually vote for Erdogan. But as you said before, we have a chance to be optimistic about the upcoming election because, for example, Gypsy Romani people, they are voting for Erdogan, but other than that, they are the least favored people in Turkey. So that they are actually suffering in economic wise, in social relationship wise, a lot of things. So they need to be side to the real power. They don't have any luxury to be in opposition. So if our opposition make these people really believe that it can gain the power, I fully believe that. For example, they can easily gain the support of the Romani people. If our
the
opposition,
people they automatically vote for the winners.
yeah.
As we said at the beginning, yes, for the winners. Yeah.
To be the winner is a real thing. People are voting for the winner. People are judging for the winner. People are favor the winner. Actually, when the opposition really becomes the winner, people who did not vote for opposition, people who did not consider for opposition, who did not see any chance or possibility for opposition, may seek to see something in opposition. I believe that if our opposition can maintain this level of popularity in the in the Turkish politics, like 35%, I'm talking about 35%, 36%, 38%, nearly 40%. If our opposition maintains this kind of popularity, it can lead more. It can lead to more easily. Because as we all know that, as I mentioned before, minorities are not have the luxury to be and to lead an opposition. It is not easy for Turkey. I mean, as I said before, for Kurds, if our opposition make a real candidate for the government, Kurds may vote more strongly for it, as the Romani people, for example. They can easily flip sides. I'm pretty sure about that. They can easily flip sides. So that's an important. I mean, and that's and these two groups easily consist 4-5% of the easily consist. You can easily add.
So I understand the average Turkish voter, basically, they want change, but they're willing to vote for a change as long as this candidate is a decent one, is the one that can lead them. If it's not, they're not going to put, no matter if it's going to lead to getting deposed of Erdogan, they don't like this alternative. They will not vote.
You are totally correct. I mean, there is an issue about people are happy or from Erdogan or not. That's one issue. But to replace him is another issue. when you try to replace him, you should have a decent candidate. You should have a decent alternative. You should make people believe that you may actually govern. As I said before, acting presidential, acting that you can govern, you can lead this country. I mean, for example, we are living in very dark times. There is a war in Ukraine. There is a war in
Globally,
Israel. There was a war in Armenia. I mean, we are living. We are surrounded of fire. There is an issue of security. There is an issue of trust. People need for leaders that can carry them out of these flames, this fire, so that people wants to believe, and people wants strong leaders. Actually, that's an issue. That's a real issue. If you like it or not.
Totally correct. I would like to wrap this up with a small, funny note, not related to the last thing you just said. You mentioned about Romani people in Turkey. I know a situation in Serbia, a really funny one on the last elections before, I guess. So imagine you have minorities in Serbia, Hungarians in the north of Serbia, near to Hungarian border, logically. And in the deep south, near the Macedonian border, there was like local elections and also presidential elections or parliamentary elections. And you have two different lists with different numbers of the leading party of our dictator, so to say. I would not like to mention his name. And they were buying the local Romani votes, gypsy votes, and some of them are illiterate. So they were just saying them which numbers to circle. So they mixed the two lists, and the one list had a Hungarian party minority. So at one point, you had like huge Hungarian voters in Vranje, in the south of Serbia, were nowhere. It was a funny thing. They were like saying we're going to need to open a embassy or consulate in south of Serbia for Hungarian minority, blah blah. So, insane. So,
I mean, we have in Balıkesir our main opposition party said a candidate whose name is Ahmet Akın, and he's a strong favorite for the election, and he actually in the end of the election he get the election. Okay, but he get nearly 50% of the vote. But before the election, there is an independent candidate who is named exactly Ahmet Akın.
And he's no one. He's just a regular person.
I mean, come on, guys. Yeah, Ahmet Akın. Yeah.
I would not be surprised if paid from AKP or from Erdogan. Just get the votes out.
Just that.
Not surprised. Yeah. Anat, do you have something else?
No, I mean it was really exciting election for us. We were not also expecting here in Berlin with the Turks. We were actually celebrating a friend's birthday, and just at the end of the birthday, we were just watching TV because we didn't plan it will be happening in that election. Yeah, I hope that everyone will also get the idea about how it was and how did it happen in Turkey. Thank you, Ilkan, for joining us today.
Always good to be here.
Yeah, we need to quote Dilara, our previous guest and colleague and a pretty dear friend of Anat currently. She posted a picture of a political map of Turkey, how it changed, how it shifted. And she said, I'm getting politically wet right now.
Yeah. I mean, I am talking our guy who just migrated to Germany like Onat. And I am telling him he did not accept you when you come back because we are getting out of our right-wing nationalist. And you stay there with Erdogan supporters because we have now a left-leaning parties on the rise of the front, and you are suffering from AFD in Germany.
Yeah, you can vote for FD in Germany. Yeah. Right-wing one in Germany. Yeah. Thank you, Ilkan, once more for being an amazing guest and shedding the light on what's going on in Turkey right now. To be honest, there's a lot of optimistic things, but let's not jinx it. Let's keep it as it is, and let's hope it leads to the better future.
Okay, see you next year.
See you next year. Yeah, hopefully to see other inputs how it turns out. Yeah, for our audience, you can follow Daktilo 1984 in Turkish, of course. What they're publishing. Follow Ilkan and also follow us. Like, click, subscribe as you always do. Yeah. enjoy, and until next time.
And bye bye.
See you all. Bye bye.